Hi, friends. Thanks so much for being here. And I really appreciate you listening to what I'm about to share. This is going to be a totally different kind of video. It's a lot more personal. I'm really called to speak uh, about about this because I find myself at a real kind of turning point moment in my life, and it's really important for us to, in the best circumstances, to show up in person for each other. But because our world is so different now, and we show up in these virtual landscapes, if you will, um, I just believe so wholeheartedly in the way that we connect to each other is through conversations, through being open-hearted about what we're going through, letting our guards down, not being so invulnerable to being who we are and sharing what we have experienced. For many people, this is very aligned with shame or embarrassment, guilt, perhaps. These are common human themes of the human condition. So, what I want to share today is this turning point that has been a very conscious decision for me, and it's happening quickly. So I'm gonna travel back in time first. And I want to speak to the fact that for the better part of 32 years, I have shown up in service through a lot of sacrifice, a lot of self sacrifice. And that began in 1994 when I was barely 28 years old. I became a mom. And I knew I always wanted to be a mom, but I wasn't per se a kid person. However, when I became a mother, it was truly life altering in the sense that it was the most natural falling into the abyss of love that I have ever experienced. As soon, I was working at that time. My background actually, even in the early years of being a mother, was design, interior architecture. I did actually a lot of freelance work. I worked for designers and architects, but did a lot of freelance work, renderings, and by hand working drawings. And at that point, when I became a mother, I was working with a designer, fully planned to go back to work. And as soon as I held my child for the first time, it was game over for me. There was no going back to work. There was only holding her, at that point forever. I wasn't going to put her down. And it was natural for me. It was natural to, and I will say, well, let me take that back. It wasn't that natural. The first, probably couple years of being a new mom. I also had my second child 22 months later. So by 30, I was a mom of two kids. And I would say those early moments of motherhood, especially the first year, there is a lot of feeling very disoriented by losing yourself. And I know I'm going to say every mother can relate to this because taking care of a child is, you're losing yourself to make sure that this child survives, right? So there is a huge sense of self-sacrifice and self-loss. For me, the exchange was, I felt like I was always winning because there was so much, not only joy, it felt so deeply sacred to not only experience this level of love for another, but also to be in that realm of caring for another, a defenseless infant that is completely and totally your responsibility. That level of love is, I had never experienced it. So I loved it. I loved those years. Those were golden years for me. By the time my kids were about 6 and 4, by necessity, I returned to work. Didn't want to, but had to. And I was blessed enough to work in a family business for a number of years until 2007, 2008. Everything in my personal life was starting to sort of dissolve and crumble beneath my feet. And by 2008, the business that my parents had built for almost 25 years was also crumbling And they lost not only that business because of that recession and a string of other circumstances. They were, almost 80. They were in their late 70s, early 80s at that point. So it was crushing. They lost everything. And those of us, the few of us in the family that worked with them, the largest pain point was watching them lose everything. And then they miraculously rebuilt their life to a certain level with almost nothing. So that's another story. From that point on, from about 2010, I was still very much holding on to that career that I had built within that industry. And with the economy, with so many other failing circumstances, I temporarily thought that I would, not thought, I chose to temporarily do childcare. And that turned into full time 7 years of being what you would call a career nanny. It was very fulfilling in the sense of being with, many newborn babies and toddlers, very young toddlers. I love children. I love babies and toddlers. So in that regard, it was otherworldly quality that children bring to the world, right? And to be in that joy, that so much cuteness and laughter, wonder was beautiful, but it was also extremely difficult work, working with families with differing dynamics and differing belief systems where you are very much a part of the family. It became, after 7 years, it became untenable, and I made a very conscious decision by 2019 that, I stepped away from that work. And at that point, the creative part of me, I had been writing, I had returned to writing around 2016. I built a website, started a blog, and then that led to writing professional content, copywriting. I did blog writing. And then the pandemic hit. And so we were all affected in different ways. My writing work, was there, but not there. Everything sort of stopped. So as I said, I started nannying in 2012. And about a year later in 2013, my former husband suffered, he had had many health problems prior to that, but at that point he suffered a very near death event and was actually written off for dead, was not expected to survive. And this was somebody who I had not been in partnership with for a handful of years. However, somebody that I never stopped loving and that I could never abandon in their hour of need. And so, all that to say, 2013 brought in a level of fear, a level of terror, a level of difficulty, hardship, and a type of caregiving I had never experienced. So I was there for him. He was in hospitals over 4+ months. Ultimately, he survived, but had to learn how to talk and walk. And it was a long, long road. And he came home to live with me and our daughters, one who had returned home, who had already left home, another one getting ready to leave. But all that to say, when he first came home to recover, I thought it might be 3 to 5 months before he'd be able to, get back to his independent life that he of course, had. But that turned into actually 9 years. He had some real, kind of victorious recoveries in those years, but also was so impacted by the level of, he had heart failure. So it was kind of a through line for the rest of his life. So there was some highs, but some real low lows of where he really needed a lot of help, caregiving, support. And that was an overlap as I was really getting into, from 2012 to 2019, doing the childcare. So there was this overlap of, taking care of other people's children, taking care of him. And all the while of what had transpired in 2007, 2008, I had really, that had really activated the survival mode instinct in me to just, you know, work and survive and keep the wheels going, keep running on the hamster wheel just to keep the lights on, so to speak. And by 2021, of course, we all, were experiencing the pandemic. I had no work during that time. Um, and then by 2021, I was starting to do writing work again, but also one of my nearest, closest, dearest friends found herself in a situation where she was called to do some high level care and service from somebody very close to her who needed a lot of help, and of course needing to always find a way to make a living. I was asked if I would help um, this person, which turned out to be the end of this person's life, and found myself very much involved um, by the end of 2021 in a realm that was like an invitation and also an opportunity that I said yes to. And not knowing that within a matter of months, David would also very much be entering that portal of, getting ready to transition, getting ready to leave this world as we know it. So by late 21, 22, I was doing professional writing for an actual agency. And then by February, David entered hospice. And that level of care really ramped up, as you can imagine. And by March, he had made his grand departure, his transition. And at that point, really operating from survival mode. So um, by the spring of 2022, um, another beloved of mine reached out to me, um, which I felt honored because there was a level of trust for which that person reached out to me to ask if I would help. An older woman who was just starting to need some help, just little things here and there. And by the end of 2022, she had moved into an assisted living. We had become very close, very bonded. And by the following year, in May of 23, she had a very serious fall, surgery, which sort of unearthed a whole other layer of her decline. And so in May of 2023, I started being with her where she lives in assisted living, but being with her as what I would call an end of life caregiver. It entailed a lot of things. And what an honor, right? What a beautiful, sacred place to be with somebody. And to back up, what she was just starting to experience when I first met her, she was just having a lot of memory issues, early kind of mild dementia. But then after the fall and the recovery, it just unearthed a whole other layer of her dementia journey. And so I have been with her and continue to be very honored to be with her. And she is also very much getting very close to her grand departure. So I'm sharing all of this because, first of all, I made a really conscious decision 3 years ago that I would receive this honor, receive this invitation, of course, receive the opportunity. This is, also work for me, income, but that when Sally was ready to, again, make her transition, I would also make mine, meaning I consciously made the decision I would no longer do any kind of caregiving work, especially from the place of survival, meaning I need to work, I need to survive. And as much of an honor it is to be in these places with people who are, um, number one, hold a tremendous amount of wisdom. It's also holds a lot of difficulty in the sense that there's a lot of sadness, there is a lot of sorrow. Um, there's a lot of quiet and stillness, sitting really in repose with somebody else. It teaches you a lot about the power of presence when it is very uncomfortable or not easy to do. So, this is where I've been for 3 years, and it has grown in the sense of becoming quieter and more still. And I would say requiring even more energy from a compassionate place, from a place of knowing that, or I should say, not knowing. There's a lot of unknowing, a lot of not knowing, a lot of, again, sitting with what is, and making the decision that yes, when Sally and I are no longer, bonded here on earth, that I would live my life with utmost trust that I can let go of that instinct to survive and return back to this creative, heart centered knowing that we are supported by forces both seen and unseen. And that's where I'm at today. That's what I wanted to share with you. Is I'm really, I'm a very creative person, and so much of that creative force that lives in me, I'm sure it lives in you as well, has been put very much on the back burner. And at this stage of my life, I feel like, I've just started my third and final act, so to speak. And there's a lot I want to do before, my time here is over. And part of that, a big part of that, is being of service. I will always be of service because I'm just wired that way. I kind of think we all are, and it's a matter of finding our unique, um, signature imprint in how we want to be of service to other. But I do believe we are all yoked and knitted together to help each other through this kind of unknown walk through, being a human. So much of it is, we wake up and we just keep going, not really knowing. But I do know that being creative for me is my highest joy. It's where I am truly in a flow state where I'm not thinking or fearing or, surviving, but I'm fully alive in that creative, beautiful stew, if you will. So that's where I'm at. I wanted to, um, say that, the astrology that I'm offering, both in, what I might say call readings or consultations as a practice and being of service to you, as well as, building this YouTube channel, which is just really more of, me expressing, um, the weather, so to speak, the energies, the astrology, the cosmos, whatever you want to say. But I also want this to be a place where, it feels collaborative, just like the readings. I always say it's not just me, this is really a collaboration of us sharing. And so much of what I'm really sharing right now is showing up with an open heart, showing up with an open mind, showing up again with this trust that we receive each other, that there is truly, um, an energy of reciprocity that lives between all of us, where we can show up and receive, and we can show up and give, both and all the time. And that's really what this is about. So I'm fully available for, whatever is next. And I'm not bringing along the fear, the worry, the anxiety, the survival instinct. I'm really, retiring that part of myself. The last thing I want to say in regard to dementia and the care that I have, really both given and received with Sally, My mom is just entering this dementia realm. And although it appears like, of course, we start to lose our short-term memory, what I know to be true, and I can say this with certainty, is what Maya Angelou said so beautifully, which is people don't remember what we did, they don't remember what we said, they remember how we made them feel. And I have experienced this over and over, not just with Sally, but so many beautiful residents that I've gotten to know where she lives who are in this realm, whether it's dementia or other um, end of life illnesses that they're experiencing. You know, a smile, um, a certain, exchange through the eyes, um, a short conversation, an acknowledgement makes people feel really, really good, really seen, really heard, safe. And that is what I bring to everything I do, especially in service to you through your beautiful chart, through your unique map, if you will, through the astrological lens, is I bring a lot of care. So much of the caregiving that I've done, like I said, for the better part of 32 years, primarily as a mother, is I really bring safety. I bring a level of you being seen and held, feeling safe and protected in this way. I guess I'll sign off for now, but if you want to reach out, or you know someone or love someone who would benefit from what I provide in service to you, I would be honored, grateful, and I would so appreciate it. So thank you so much, and bye for now.